Welcome everyone to a Homefront the Revolution review chat. I'm joined by Johnny Chiodini, the
Hello.
man of the moment who has reviewed Homefront the Revolution for us. So I guess the main question is, Johnny, is Homefront the Revolution a revolution in gaming?
That's very good.
Thanks.
It's a difficult one. Homefront the Revolution is a game that I both really, really like and really, really loathe for different reasons.
Okay, that's odd. 50% love-hate.
Yeah, so in terms of the gameplay, it's really well built. It's one of the better shooters I've played for quite some time, actually. Like, the city, for one thing, is amazing. You're playing in Philadelphia, and it's been carved up into these different zones by the occupying North Korean forces. So you've got your red zones, which are like no man's zones, and they're swarming with guards. But then they form kind of a buffer between these yellow zones, and that's where people live, and that's where you have to go and sort of do missions and capture outposts and stuff in order to inspire the people of Philadelphia to rise up against their oppressors and take the city back.
Okay.
And that's all like actually genuinely felt like really, really good and really interesting. The city's lovely, and the level design is genuinely like in places brilliant.
There's got a lot of verticality to it, hasn't it? You can climb up things and
halfway up all the buildings.
And
yeah, you've got all these walkways that the Resistance have kind of built in, and you can infiltrate these buildings in sort of sneaky ways. You've got a pair of bolt cutters that allow you into pretty much anywhere. That's all brilliant, and like the guns are pretty good. Like the customization options are really lovely. The AI is fine; it's not great, but like generally speaking, the gunplay's like pretty good. And when you shoot somebody in the head, you get like this little boom noise. So it's all it's very satisfying. Noise. Yeah, you like that one as well. I remember you saying the other day. The problem about Homefront the Revolution is that the resistance you're fighting for is just staffed by horrible people, like really odious characters.
Okay, are they really horrible because they've been like driven that way by the circumstances, or is it just the writing makes them horrible?
So both,
right.
Basically. The game constantly tries to let you know just how everyone is really grizzled, and they're downtrodden by the KPA, and they're bitter, and they want to fight back because they're desperate for freedom and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're meant to get on board with this stuff, but for one thing, like, well, they're just like it's an entire resistance movement of surfer dude bros.
So I couldn't think of anything worse. Let the KPA win.
But like, yeah, the KPA I think is genuinely more likable, even though they're supposed to be the perpetrators of this horrible violence. So, but the resistance people, they're all really vicious and they're really hateful, but they articulate it in this kind of really obnoxious way. So there's one guy at one point who you're sat in a room, and just out of nowhere he said to me, "Phew, never thought I'd have to clean someone's brains off my face." And it's like, that's not an endearing punchline. You're just being a dick. And there are loads of different missions where you have to just do spiteful things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to talk about this a bit in the review as well, but there's a bit where so one of the zones is full of collaborators, or clabs as they're called in the game, because it loves its own nomenclature.
Yeah.
And these people are cooperating with the KPA in exchange for a better quality of life, right? Because, you know, some people will do that if there's an occupying force. And then once you've incited that area to rebel, you get this like side mission that you can do. They're called jobs, where you have to go out and photograph collaborators so that the resistance can identify them and murder them for being traitors. And it's meant to be presented as like they're getting justice and they shouldn't have betrayed America. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but it just seems mean-spirited and petty, especially since, like, if London got taken over,
yeah,
and somebody was, like, came round to me and they tried to recruit me for the Resistance, and they acted, dressed, and sounded like the people in Homefront the Revolution, I'd say no thanks.
No thanks. I'll start my own resistance that isn't full of douchebags.
Yeah, exactly that. And the leaders of the resistance are just as bad. They're all one-note characters who are just, they're characters you've seen a million times before. There's the grizzled leader who's like, I'm not good with words, but we gotta do what we gotta do. And then you've got the doctor who's like, oh, you're killing people and it's horrible.
Yeah.
Trying to bring in moral substance, but it's just lip service. And then you've got a lady who's like, she's the one who trains up the grunts and stuff, and she's just obsessed with stabbing people.
Yes,
and
she's the one that tries to cut your nipples off.
That's exactly right, yeah. She says nipples first, okay, the first time you meet her, because she's about to torture you, because she hasn't bothered to work out who you are yet. And you think that, at some point during the game, you're going to get some sense of like why she's like this, or it's easy to assume that it's all an act because she's actually desperately sad and she's just trying to keep it together. She never really has that redeeming moment. She's just that angry the whole game.
So
and
there's literally
tedious.
no depth to the characters except for these kind of stereotypes that we've seen a million times before.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right.
There's also the fact that Homefront: The Revolution is pretty racist.
What?
It's genuinely actually pretty racist. Like we've made something of this before on the channel where Martin talked about it, I think, where basically the North Koreans are referred to as Norks.
Yeah.
Which is, tee-hee-hee. I don't think... I mean, I was going to say I don't think they caught onto the fact that Norks means boobies, but Dambuster is based in Nottingham in the UK.
Yes.
So I don't know... Anyway, they refer to the North Koreans at every possible opportunity as Norks. And it's just really... A, it's really grating, and B, I think it's genuinely just really racist.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like they've tried to kind of recreate Germany occupying like France or something. So you have, once Germany was kicked out of France, a lot of the women who slept with German officers got their heads shaved and paraded through the streets and shamed. And, people called them, was it Jerry's we used to call them and stuff? It sounds like they've kind of tried to do that, but in a really awkward, clumsy way.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much hitting the nail on the head. They've tried to paint a picture of the anger and the frustration and the sense of betrayal that comes from being occupied by another country and subjugated. And they're meant to be angry, and they are angry. That comes across, but it's poorly executed and it's incredibly misguided. Like, I'm not trying to say that anger and that hunger for vengeance isn't, like, a justifiable or a certifiable way to approach, like, things in a video game. But the way they've done it, it's just really, really short-sighted. Like, the Resistance characters are racist. I'm not saying that anyone who made this game is racist. But my God, the people you're fighting with and are supposed to be championing, they are just really racist. It ruined the game for me, basically. Like, there's nothing likable about the Resistance for which you fight. And I wouldn't recommend this video game to a friend for that, in case they think I'm a racist.
Okay, fair enough. So the main character you play as, is he a voiceless character? Do you?
Oh yeah.
You don't get to know anything about him at all, I guess.
No. You play as Ethan Brady, who is the mute hero of the Resistance, and it's brilliant. There are so many points where you see the three archetypal leaders of the Resistance arguing about what the right thing to do is. Should we be killing these people? Should we not? And at one point, minor story spoilers, but at one point, you are deliberately given up to the KPA because you're a wanted man. You're deliberately given up to the KPA in order to infiltrate a base, and basically you're the Trojan horse. You're meant to open the door for your Resistance chums. And they're arguing about whether or not it's a viable strategy, and they turn to you and go, thanks so much for doing this, I know it isn't easy, I'm really glad you agreed to. You haven't said a word. You're standing there while they decide, as if you're not in the room, that they're going to give you up to the KPA in the hopes that you can bust out of prison. And yeah, you go along with it, and that's what you do.
Amazing.
And it's hilarious.
if they'd have given him some kind of personality or something, then you'd be able to, I don't know, understand the motives a bit more, but
I think so, yeah. So if basically, structurally, Homefront: The Revolution is very similar to, say, Far Cry 3, and I think in some aspects, like keeping the outpost capture gameplay fresh and interesting, it's actually done a better job than Far Cry. But one thing Far Cry has that this doesn't is that, like, Jason Brody, love him or loathe him, he does talk and he expresses when he's feeling unsure about something, and just a little bit of that in the game, if Brady had been like, is this really what we ought to be doing, or I killed these people, blah blah blah, or hey, stop saying norks, it's racist, like it,
rather than just some kind of voiceless Terminator that they send out to do their dirty work for them.
Yeah, because you never say anything and you never voice any concerns about what you're doing, it renders all of the stuff where the doctor character is like, ugh, think about what you're doing, you're just, you're creating senseless violence and you're just upping the body count. It renders all of that stuff just irrelevant. They just really profoundly messed up, I think, in certain aspects of designing this game and its story and its articulation. So, like, as a video game, the gameplay is really good, and I think there's a lot that its developers can be proud of. But tonally, it's a disaster.
Right. Well, one thing I did want to touch on about the gameplay quickly was the fact that during my short time with the game that I played, we realised that we could actually cheese some missions really easily by running in past all the enemies and just activating a button which would completely clear the outpost you were trying to liberate from bad guys, and then you could just basically cheat the missions. Is that a thing that you were doing the whole way through, or is it something that I just stumbled across by accident?
It's totally doable. Like, you're right, I did do it a few times. It wasn't something I started to rely on as a quick and easy way to clear a mission, because one thing that's quite good about the combat in this game is if you're careless and you get out into the open, it punishes you quite quickly. So while it's everything you say there is true, like if you activate the main objective on an outpost, like whether that's hacking a thing or turning a valve so that the pressure goes up and a pipeline explodes or whatever, if you do that, it claims the outpost and it clears all the hostiles out.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's ever going to be really viable or necessarily like fun or interesting to just run in there and do it, because oftentimes you'll get shot down before you reach the objective. You're more often than not, if you're in an outpost and there are loads of, like, if there are a few guards left and maybe some more are coming in, or you're about to be spotted again, running for the objective and just taking care of it is an easy way to clear it out. So it's a bit of an immersion buster, and it's a bit of a shame because it makes it a lot easier to just capture a big swathe of each zone. But yeah, I don't know. It's not perfect, but it's not game breaking unless you go out of your way to do it, in which case that's you breaking the game.
Fair enough. So I guess then, summing it up, what it sounds like to me from what you've told me is that if you go into the game expecting a good story, whatever, you're going to be disappointed. But if you just want a cool action game along the lines of Far Cry, and you can tune out the motives and the chatter, you should be able to have a good time.
Yep, there's a lot to like in Homefront: The Revolution. It's just a shame that there's a lot to really dislike as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks for chatting to us, Johnny. If you want to read his full review, don't forget to head over to Eurogamer.net. That review's up on site right now. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe if that tickles your fancy. Goodbye, I guess.
Goodbye.
Let's start with something relatively straightforward. Hearing an enemy Thera leap into the air and shout "Justice reigns from above." If you played Overwatch, you'll know that's an important line. It's a bad thing that's about to happen because that is her ultimate ability. It's very powerful, and you hear that. You even hear the word justice, and you're already running for cover.